Hello everyone, it's Slatter, and welcome to another edition of GTA Heat Check's ISO mode. Make sure you follow GTA Heat Check and GTA Sports Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, GTA Sports, and don't forget GTASportsNet.com for all things in the world of sports. Now, before we get down to business, I want to give a quick shout out to New Age Elements. Make sure you check out naelements.net. Get your Heat Check merch. We got the joggers out. We got the shorts out as well. Look, it's July 4th. Independence Weekend's on the way. Get your shorts, get your merch. We got more coming. naelements.net. Shout out to them. And shout out to Magic Shots for the new intro. I hope you guys love the work we're doing here at GTA Sports Network. Now, on the last video I did with the Charlotte Hornets, I told you guys I was going to talk about the Chicago Bulls. I was in the middle of making that video. It's still coming. Don't worry. We're going to talk about it. But today's video is about a trade that just went down. It's still pending according to Sports Track. But the Denver Nuggets traded Will Barton and Monte Morris for Ish Smith and KCP of the Washington Wizards. Now, I wonder if you guys understand what this trade actually does. Now, it's somewhat of a lateral move, but you got expiring contracts versus contracts that would have required a lot more money. Little do you know, the Denver Nuggets are over the cap. Not by much, but they don't really have any money to make any moves because they already paid Michael Porter Jr., Jamal Murray prior to his ACL injury after the season after the bubble, and Nikola Jokic. Now, they're trying to get Nikola Jokic some help. You're going to get some shooting at that. I mean, I like the move, but you're dealing with two expiring contracts that if it doesn't work out, they come off the books. But they were getting paid roughly the same amount of money. Will Barton and KCP, basically $14 million. I think Will Barton was 14.3. But of course, again, he was up for more money. So they sent those two players, Will Barton and Monte Morris, off to the Wizards because ultimately they didn't have the money to pay them what they were valued at, what they were going to be worth when their contracts expired. Unlike KCP and Ish Smith, their contracts are already on expired, so they fall off the books. My thoughts on the trade, again, the Denver Nuggets really didn't have much of a choice. They have a lot of contracts that are still on the cap that's impacting them. Bryn Forbes with 5.4 hasn't fallen off yet. You still have players like Troy Daniels, 1.8 million. Richard Jefferson, his final contract, he's still getting paid 1.8 off of that last contract before he retired. DeMarcus Cousins is still on the books for 1.7. Austin Rivers, 1.7. And they got the early bird with him, just to name a few. So the Denver Nuggets, I wasn't going to talk about them, but this trade kind of forced my hand to bump them over to Chicago Bulls. Again, if you're waiting for the Chicago Bulls video, I got you. Just sit tight. But we got to address what's going on in the NBA right now. Today is the 29th as we're recording this video. So, of course, some players that have opted out or opted in. Today is the deadline. Kyrie Irving and Russell Westbrook have already, well, in Russell Westbrook's case with the Lakers, he's already got his agent putting in the paperwork to opt in to his 47. Kyrie Irving announced it via Shams at The Athletic that he's opting in to his $36.5 million with the Brooklyn Nets. One of the few players we're waiting on now, Zach LaVine, Bradley Beal, James Harden, their deals are not finalized yet. It is reported as of yesterday, Bradley Beal is going to more likely opt out and sign a 5-year, north of $200 million extension with the Wizards. Does this mean he's going to stay in Washington? No. But it's possible. They already anticipate him opting out because they knew that he could get more money if he opted out versus opting into his deal, and he knew that as well. So, of course, he's been talking to all the players around the league, all his friends around the league, from the Damian Lillards to LeBron James. Obviously trying to get some advice and some guidance on this decision because it's a big deal. Opting out does make him an unrestricted free agent. Do I see Bradley Beal moving? It's still possible, but he's been so loyal to the franchise, and they've done everything they can to help him. And I think them getting Will Barton and Monte Morris out of Denver is them trying to show Bradley Beal that we're willing to build around you. We believe in you, and we're gonna get you some talent, some younger talent that has a slightly higher ceiling than Ish Smith. and KCP. And this is no shot to them because KCP gives you a threat from the perimeter. Ish Smith, even though he's inconsistent, he does still give you a true point guard. He can play make. He impacts the tempo and the pace of play on the court. Team IQ is pretty high with those two. They play well together in Washington. This season was kind of I don't want to say it was a lost year, but with Bradley Beal having to end his season with the wrist, I believe it was wrist surgery, their season was pretty much a wash. No disrespect to them. The Wizards, they have young potential. They just, again, it's when you lose your superstar to an injury or a season-ending surgery, if you will. In most cases, the team does the best they can to just maintain. But the Wizards already knew they weren't going to make it to the playoffs, so they pretty much just called it a season once he went down. Nikola Jokic is back-to-back MVP. Okay, statistically, he is everything that the unicorn that Kristaps Porzingis should be. And that's no disrespect to him, but injuries, inconsistencies, and attitude problems have derailed what his potential projected him to be when he was drafted by the New York Knicks by Phil Jackson at the time. Nikola Jokic is doing everything he can to keep Denver relevant. Quick shout out to Mike Malone, another Popovich protege. Denver's a good, solid franchise. Small market, though, believe it or not. For them to still make the playoffs without Jamal Murray was great. Problem is, you're running your offense through your center. And your center is not a Joel Embiid or Giannis Antetokounmpo or that type of build. He's not a Rudy Gobert. He's not a Karl-Anthony Towns. These are guys who can get up and down the floor at a decent speed, being 7 foot tall, basically, or having over 7 foot wingspan and what have you. He can shoot three very well for his size. He does everything that you need a big to do. Stretch the floor, make the defense honest, and hold the defense accountable. You have to put a hand in his face. You have to do everything you can to slow him down because you won't really be able to stop him. He moves at his own pace. He does his own thing. He does it his own way. The problem with this team is they prematurely gave Michael Porter Jr. a big contract, even though his health record should have warned you, don't guarantee any money with Michael Porter Jr. until you get consistent health in good standing. This man fell in the draft and almost fell out of the lottery because of a back issue he had in college. And I believe the story came out that his family has had a history of health issues. That they just, for whatever reason, I guess it's genetics. They just have bad bodies when it comes to durability and stability. You paid Jamal Murray, which you're not wrong for. You weren't wrong for that. You can't gauge injury, unfortunately. But keep in mind, both Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. are on their rookie extensions. So, and I mean that's just in a nutshell. You have to make sure that your players are getting paid for one and want to stay for two. From the looks of it, it just looks like they're trying to clear money and move players to basically be able to keep their core: Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, and Michael Porter Jr. I think that's what it looks like to me. It definitely looks that way to me. But their team is pretty much stuck as is. They can't get much better than what they are, unfortunately, because they already paid their players. So I think the move is good for what they did. I mean, because if it doesn't work out, you're not stuck with those players. You can move them, you can package them and ship them out to another team that'll graciously take KCP and Ish Smith, both proven veteran players that can contribute to a championship contender, or at the very minimum a playoff contender. Where do I see Denver next season? Honestly, I gotta see Jamal Murray. He hasn't played in like 2 years. It does. It's hard to believe it's been that long, but it's been almost 2 years, or at least 2 seasons since we've seen Jamal Murray, because he got hurt 3 games into last season, if I'm not mistaken. Um, coming right out of the bubble that season, right after the bubble. So if he's back being himself, but the type of injury he had and the time that he's missed, he has to get back in basketball shape for one. He has to regain his confidence for two, because when you got that type of injury and you're that type of player and you're so young, it's really not about the physical at that point. It's more of the mental. Like, mentally, are you capable of bouncing back and showing the world why you are that guy? Why Denver needs to rally behind you? Right now, since he's been gone, Nikola Jokic has become the superstar by far. And I think at one point, up until his ACL injury, he was considered the leader of the team. He was considered the star of the team. Nikola Jokic took the torch and ran with it, and I'm thoroughly proud, because not every player can do that. It only takes it's a select few that just know when to take the torch and make sure the team doesn't lose its identity. But the problem is, you go from having a leader and a point guard to a leader at the 5. And your 5 can't be your point, and your point can't be your 5. So it's one of those things where the team's identity, chemistry, style of play has completely changed. And me personally, I think it's stagnated. Even though Jokic got back-to-back MVPs, and that's great. Shout out to Mike Malone. Shout out to Jokic for saving Mike Malone's job, because one could argue that had they not had a successful season the last 2 years, Mike Malone was on the line. They were getting ready to fire Mike Malone. He got an extension off of Jokic MVP runs. That's really what saved his job and gave him the extension as a coach. They were getting ready to move him. It wasn't widely reported, but Mike Malone was on his way out the door until Jokic had it back-to-back MVP season and broke the record and put himself in that club, with the 10,000 points, 7,000 rebounds, 7,000 assists. I mean, it's amazing that he's able to do that at a center. But problem is, the offense is stagnated, on top of the fact that Michael Porter Jr., even though he rose in the time that Jamal Murray's been gone, and got his money, earned his money, played out, he's not durable. He's not reliable. He has yet to prove, since he's been in the league, that you can put money behind him and he'll carry your team to the next level. He's shown flashes of it. He's shown potential. He's had multiple back surgeries, and that's where it gets scary, because what you don't want is another. He's not Ben Simmons, because he can shoot the lights out confidently, so the shot's not the problem. But the back surgeries give me CJ McCollum vibes. Like, you want him to take that next step, but his body just is unable to answer the call. And I think that's the problem. And then you have Aaron Gordon, who my man Tone over at Heat Check really could care less about Aaron Gordon at any level, any team, in any capacity. Is a guy who is mainly known for dunking, but in the last few years since he's been in Denver and left Orlando, he's been trying to shoot more threes. And that's not really his game, but he's trying to adapt because he's in a new environment and he wants to feel like he's contributing. And I understand that, but what you don't want to do, you don't want to go to another team who signed you on a veteran extension for what you did in Orlando, and you come to Denver trying to do what they do in Denver, but they didn't pay you to do that. You're not getting paid to shoot threes. Michael Porter Jr. is getting paid to shoot threes. Jamal Murray, when healthy, is getting paid to shoot threes. Will Barton, Monte Morris, now that they're in the Wizards, they're going to be expected. Those two guys, once this transaction and they clear waivers and everything is good, they're going to be expected to improve the Wizards' shooting above the perimeter. They're going to be expected to move the ball. They're going to be expected to take the pressure off of Bradley Beal, take the pressure off Kyle Kuzma, who's been very inconsistent since he's gotten in the league. He'll show you flashes of brilliance. He might drop 30 one night. Then in the next 5 games, he'll go average 12 to 15 points. He's just inconsistent. He can change that, but maybe that's who he is. Some players are just inconsistent. So I look at the current roster of players that are active on the roster. This team doesn't even have 12-man roster right now that's active. But all the money's going to your top 3 players: Nikola, Jokic, Jamal Murray, and Michael Porter Jr. With Aaron Gordon's veteran extension coming in and anchoring that. So those are your highest paid players on the franchise. And when I look at that, I see why Denver is essentially not going to make it past the first or second round. If you look at the reality of it, is they're not built for the playoffs. They're another team kind of like the Utah Jazz. Utah Jazz and Denver Nuggets are interchangeable. And I only say that because their regular season looks brilliant and they look like the perfect team on paper. And when you look at the names and you look at the statistics, you look at the numbers, if you're into the numbers, these guys look the part, right? They look the part. But when you look at the results in the postseason, you see where the flaws come in. When you don't have a bench, and a team that I can use as an example for this is the Milwaukee Bucks, who won the 2021 championship and paid the top 3 players, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Jrue Holiday, and Chris Middleton. Problem is when you pay your top 3 players max dollars, even though they're eligible, you don't always have to throw all your money at them. Sometimes you have to really put on the negotiating hat and talk to the players about, hey, the market says you're worth this max. However, I want you to think about this. Before we pay you that, do you want to win another championship? Or do you just want to get paid? Because the reality of it is, in Denver, even though Denver hasn't won anything, this is the example that it relates to and it compares to. The Milwaukee Bucks fell out of the playoffs this year because they lost Chris Middleton in the first round to the Chicago Bulls with injury. And when it came down to it, Giannis carried them as far as he could by himself. And Jrue Holiday tried to pick up the slack, but Jrue Holiday can't score like Chris Middleton. Jrue Holiday can't score his points and Chris Middleton's points. Giannis is going to be Giannis and carry you as far as you can until the team wises up and looks at the footage of the 2019 Toronto Raptors with Kawhi Leonard when they put up the box and one and put a wall up and shut down Giannis Antetokounmpo. So once you put that wall up, he's done. Because his game is heavily reliant on driving to the basket, drawing the fouls, getting to the free throw line, or dunking on his opponent. Because his jump shot, as much as he has improved on it, is still not his primary bread and butter. His bread and butter is attacking the rim with a ferocity that can't be stopped, a la LeBron James. So, again, back to Denver's situation. Denver's another team. Regular season, they look brilliant. Regular season defense is stellar. They lost JaMychal Green in a trade at the beginning of the offseason. So let's not forget about that. Yeah. So, again, they trade him to OKC. So, this team needs ultimately these role players hopefully will fill in the holes on the offense that you lose when you lose Will Barton and Monte Morris. But it look for the most part, unless they're making another drastic move they haven't done yet, it looks like a lateral move because you replace 2 players with 2 players that basically do the same thing. They're just on expiring contracts. Now, what can happen is if they're looking at this season as, okay, we get Jamal Murray back, we'll get Michael Porter back, we should be able to make a run. Then what happens is, let's say you don't make it, or you get to a certain level and you fall in the first or second round again. The difference between keeping Will Barton and Monte Morris versus gaining KCP and Ish Smith is if you don't succeed and hit the goal for this year and make it to the championship round, which you more likely won't because the West is getting stronger every day, those 2 contracts will fall off the books and you won't be over the cap. You'll be able to make some moves and get better players around your core. But right now, the core is not healthy. And that's really the ultimate setback for Denver Nuggets. Again, it's another edition of GTA Heat Checks ISO mode. I got the Chicago Bulls on the way. I ain't forgot about you, but make sure you follow GTA Sports Network, GTA Heat Check on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Subscribe to YouTube channel, GTA Sports. Don't forget GTASportsNet.com for all things in the world of sports. It's Ty Slatter with GTA ISO mode. And until next time, take care.